That's the man. Zeus's coffee superhero. Hi, nice to meet you.
How are you?
Good,
New person.
good.
Yeah, wanna come?
Yeah. Hi, nice to meet you. Good. Just filming their story as an AI company and what they're building.
Sure.
Hope that's fine. Thank you. We have a cool office. Lots of coffee cups in here and coffee.
You can take a look if you want.
This is Zeus Cafe.
Do you want a drink? You can either make it yourself or...
Okay, perfect. Thank you for making time, Johnson, again. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Your presentation was actually super great to see at the AI Thinkers. So that was quite fun. You actually brought insights. So the goal for today is to get that story out, and hopefully I can post it online every time as many people to see it. So kind of, if you can walk us through what was the goal at AI Thinkers, what you shared, what you kind of do as this coffee and with the company. So let's just start. What do you do? What do you do with the company?
Yeah, so I run a company called mindhive, which basically builds custom AI software for businesses. And Zeus Coffee turned out to be one of our very first clients and close partners that we work together to help kind of like drive their operations efficiency through AI, basically.
And how did you manage to come across Zeus Coffee? Because I believe in the AI Thinkers, you were phrasing it really funny. Like it just picked you up off the street. Or like, oh, you guys met and you could offer something and then you did something. But can you describe that interaction?
Right. So it so happened that the founder of Zeus Coffee invested in another business that I own called Unearth, which is a used furniture resale.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were talking about ideas and like, what AI can do, because Unearth is a very manual business.
Correct.
So we're looking at a lot of like, I'm looking into like, how do I automate it? How do I make it more efficient and stuff like that? And naturally I came across AI. And it was back when it was, actually it was still pre-ChatGPT. There were like AI writers, content writers, like what's the name, Jasper, or I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's like Jasper.
Yeah, I do.
Back then.
Yes.
So I started playing around with it, and instead of asking it to write articles, I asked it to write, for example, instructions or like stuff like that. Then I was like, oh, it actually works, right? It actually works. So that was when I kind of like a light bulb triggered in my head, and I was like, okay, I need to be a part of this, right? I need to be a part of this.
Yeah.
But I don't know what. So the easiest way is just to start a consultancy, to learn more about what people need, beside myself that is, and see how we can actually find ways to productize what we do, right? So yeah, that's how we are going.
That's how you went about. That's how you met Mrs. Coffee. What you're doing with the other business, and what's just a side note, because I think it's interesting to own multiple businesses, but how do you juggle now between kind of Unearth and what you do with Zeus Coffee and mindhive?
Right. Zeus Coffee is a client, right? So they are a client, but we do some work there in terms of like influencing the innovation direction of the business. However, jumping between mindhive and Unearth is actually right now quite simple, because I have a management team in place at Unearth that basically drives the business forward, and they are incentivized in the correct way, the incentives are aligned for them to run it well and grow it. Okay. So yeah, I just need to catch up with them once a week. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Elon Musk type of style.
So much better than the clunky clips, right? Yeah. So much better. Yeah. So as I was like researching AI, I made a decision that hey, I think this is the next platform shift, and I kind of need to be a part of it. So then, for us to get for me to be able to be a part of it, I needed a few things, right? I needed one, a steady stream of use cases. Two, some cash to build a team. And three, actually buy-in from my CTO, which of Unearth that back then. He's a really cool guy. I mean, he's very wide and he's quick to learn stuff. You know, he's not necessarily the best in any one, but he's very wide, right? He's very wide, right? And he learns pretty quickly.
Okay.
So
in traditional software, it's either you go deep or you go wide, right?
Yeah.
But for AI, you have to do both. You have to go wide and you have to go deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, for both in order for it to work. Yeah.
That sounds dirty. That sounds super dirty.
That's you, bro.
So back then he used to be, okay, so let's start off with him first, right? You know, how I needed to get him in place was he was a PHP guy, right? He's a PHP guy by nature.
Developer.
Yeah, developer. So I was like, okay, we need to be part of AI, but how do I convince him that hey, he can pick it up, right? I mean, because he had zero experience in it, stuff like that. So I knew he learned fast, but for him to switch to a new language like Python and actually learn how to do AI development is a whole different thing. So what I did was, as ChatGPT kind of like came out, and I saw more and more people using it for coding. So I used that. So I was sitting beside him every day, you know, like, hey dude, you know, look at this, you know, like I can turn your code in PHP into Python, you know, so you don't even worry about the language shit, you know. So then I went on and like, you know, like, and one day he was like, okay, fuck, let's do it, you know, like let's just do it, you know. So then he came on board, right? So then
How long did that take?
I think maybe like about a month. Like, so I had to like go to his house and like talk to him, you know, like don't worry.
Putting in the work.
Yeah. So then after that I fired him from Unearth and myself.
Who's the main CTO you had to convince for so long? Nice to meet you.
so I fired him, so that I can start this. So
and tell us how you got into working now with Just Coffee, which is incredible coffee. So even the toilet has some cool stuff. I think the last one, not paying suppliers on time is not cool.
So that's the next part. So that's the next part that I needed in place, right? I knew that for an AI company to kind of like start in a situation where there's a lack of ready skills and a lack of ready know-how. I needed a sandbox, right? I needed a place where I can play, right? A place where I can play. So I remembered a conversation with Ian, which is the founder and CEO of Zeus, about AI, and he had a few use cases that he wanted to push forward. Right. So one of them being like a chatbot for the customer service. Another is a forecasting thing. You know, like so all these things can serve as our kind of like initial starting point. So that's what I did. I kind of like proposed it to him that, hey, I'm starting this. Give me the use cases, right? You know, like give me the use cases. So basically, what he did was he opened the doors for us. You know.
Oh, if I can take one.
Yeah, sure.
Take a look. No. I have this. Oh, I thought this is actually like, a thin wall, but actually when I turn in, this is huge. This is huge.
So that's like stage 2.
Asked us to come in, pitch, and then we basically went ahead and built it, right? So we basically structured the deal so that there's like some cash upfront so that we could initiate the company. And this is only possible because there's trust there, right? There's trust there between me and him that I would not run away with the money.
The trust, where did it come from?
I think it was through my previous company that we were my updates were like super blunt, like super and transparent. So I share all the numbers with all of our investors. So it kind of like created trust over time. Yeah.
When we met at the AI Thinkers, you were the most blunt, most direct, and the most upfront and transparent.
Right.
With like, okay, what's happening in an AI use case? What actually is the challenge? Well, actually, it's a good part, and we solved it. But like, you went in and you delivered to what the event was supposed to be about. I think more than anyone there.
Right. Thank you. Yeah.
So I can see where he got us was from.
Right.
I felt it myself.
So with the initial money, we used that to put together an initial team, right? And the initial team were seriously like a bunch of ragtags, right? You know. This is our entire team.
That's your entire team.
Yeah. We still have people like working from home because it's a counseling period and like it's a culture.
Yeah.
Like, work from home whenever you want. It's a bunch of ragtags. They are not pure developers. They were basically people with another job that had a lot of side projects, right? In the side, they were playing around with AI. They were playing around with either ChatGPT or like, you know, frameworks like Rasa, you know, stuff like that. One of them was a pharmacist, like a full-time pharmacist with the government. One of them was a petroleum engineer, and another was what was he? A chemical engineer. Yeah. So three different people from different spaces, but they learned pretty fast. So that was the initial kind of like team. 5 of us. Yeah.
This is the girls' team. And the leader.
Yeah, the leader has stars on her face.
So the stars are actually the gauge of how stressed I am. Yeah. Stress level.
And passion level.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
I
I'll try
learned
to tackle
pretty
it.
fast is an invaluable skill of today. Just on the way here, I saw, and I tested before, like there's these tools where now you just upload, let's say, right, because I do more UI UX.
Yeah.
And then there's just like, you take the Figma design and Bold just makes it into code.
Yeah.
You edit it in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So learning fast is important. Now I'm sure with a team like that, there must have been challenges.
Mm-hmm.
What
Yeah.
are some of those challenges?
Yeah, I think. I mean, definitely code structure is something that is a challenge, and especially with AI, there's not a lot of like testing frameworks and those guys don't care about testing frameworks anyway, but it was kind of needed, and we kind of knew that this was something to take care of, right? You know, like there's something to be aware of. And for us to move fast, we're just like, fuck this shit, you know, like we're not gonna like care about that. We just figure out how to build it first, and then we fix it later, right? We fix it later. Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. The number one priority at that point of time is to be able to deliver the use case, which was the biggest challenge at that point of time, right? You know, you're talking about back when where we were trying to build a full conversational chatbot on top of GPT 3.5, you know, 3 and 3.5, which was a huge challenge, you know, huge challenge. Now things have gotten easier, and I think that we're in a good position now because of the shit that we went through back then, you know. So
Well,
Fortunate position of going down.
and I would like to think that given that the advantage that we have,
Yeah.
I think currently we have a slight edge, you know, that we are working with, and we plan to actually go deeper and
Can you tell us a bit of the shit that went through back then? Because I remember you were pointing it very clearly, very funnily at AI thinkers, and that's kind of the story that I want people to see. That was refreshing and captivating.
Right. So I mean, in the beginning, most of the shit was technological shit, right? And then to figure out how to make it work for the use case. So we have 3 main kind of like product direction. It's not really products. It's basically just capability directions, right? One is in terms of document processing, basically document AI and workflow automation. So in the early stages, we needed to figure out how to like extract information from a document easily, accurately, and then how do we like place kind of like the processes in place, right? You know, so whatever document that we take out, you know, what from what OCR are we going to use, you know, to how do we identify what processes to run within that document, for example.
Just explain what OCR is.
OCR is basically optical character recognition, which basically turns an image into something readable by the computer, right? So that's what it is. So there's a lot of different types of document formats. So for example, to deal with tables, you know, it's one process. To deal with images within a document is another process. To deal with what do you call that? The description of images is another process. Right? So in essence, we need to figure out how to classify each of these kind of like components within a document, and then how to extract it well through a kind of like a few step process, extract well and put it into a workflow. Yeah, so back then when there was no multimodal, there's no all this stuff, we basically needed to figure out how to do it like in a way. I mean, I'm not technical enough to tell you kind of like what the exact kind of like mechanisms were, but what I can tell you is that for each one of those processes, there's like a huge ass workflow like that goes behind the scenes, right? For example, for tables, there's so many type of tables that need to be dealt with. Like one is like, for example, bank account statements. Some banks have their tables, the first page has a header and the next few pages don't. So AI gets confused in situations like this, especially if it's multi-page. So we need to build special handling for all these kind of like situations. And also there's like stuff like in Malaysia, there's a lot of companies, okay, not a lot, but a big chunk of companies that still use dot matrix printers. Do you know what that is?
I don't actually. If you can.
How old are you?
I'm 26.
Okay, yeah, you wouldn't know. All right, so it's those printers that go chank,
Okay, got
right,
it.
right,
Okay,
in like those old ass printers. So there's a huge chunk of companies that still use that. And the problem with these printers is they print between the lines. So like in a table, it doesn't follow the lines or the columns, right? So we need special handling for stuff like that. Yeah. So we had to learn and build all these capabilities as we went along. And there's handwriting documents as well, which is a special handler, right, for it. Yeah.
Gosh, okay, so those technological ones, they were seem to be a bit of pain in the neck.
Yeah.
And you've probably handled them with the team as they were, right? I think at AI Thinkers, you were mentioning that you had at one point even problems with like the data that was just supposed to be trusted data.
Yeah.
And it works perfectly. Actually, there were mistakes in it, and then you had to go to the actual team to say, okay, so we've built something on wrong data. And that was quite like, I think that was a good learning you've pointed out.
Right.
Tell us about that one.
Right. I think, so, okay, basically the scenario was that whenever we, like in the beginning, okay, we were naive, right? I mean, we were naive. So when our clients tell us that, okay, this data is correct, we take it as it is. So never do that, right? Never do that. Always check and validate the data, to make sure that it's correct, and validate it a couple of times to make sure that what you're building on top of is actually reliable data. And this comes to the fact that I think a lot of businesses in Malaysia actually lack this data knowledge, to be capable of understanding like how data works, and when you build kind of like AI stuff on top of the data, it needs that to be accurate and stuff like that, and knowing how to control the quality of your data, and putting emphasis on that, right? I think this is something that's like among companies in Malaysia is actually quite lacking. Yeah, it's quite lacking. So it's something that needs to be dealt with, I think.
So double checking what the client is, just question them even if they don't like it. Basically. Whether your team handles the correct data, whether the data is correct.
Yeah, which comes back to a point, right, where it also depends on who you talk to in the organization, right? I mean, the people, when you question them about the quality of the data, the operational layer will always hate you, right? They will always freaking hate you. Sometimes even the head of departments, the executive management layer will also hate you. Usually you need to go to the top. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
So be aware.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, so that's another insightful learning. But please continue. So be careful on. The operational will have their issues with you, of course, because you have to question them and they have to be questioned back.
Right.
And I guess there's a lot of back and forth that then goes between you and them, and that's also a loss of time.
Yes.
So technical challenge, data people challenge.
Yeah.
And where are you now?
There's one more challenge, which is workflow challenge. So a lot of companies in Malaysia, don't exactly know their workflows, like their process flows for certain things that they do. They don't have it documented, and it's all probably in someone's brain somewhere, right? So the documentation part is also something to be aware of, and we were just lucky that we had this sandbox here in Zeus that allowed us to be able to kind of like learn and power through all these challenges as we go along, so that we can figure out strategies on how to do it for the next clients.
Nice. So when you mean workflow challenges, I believe I remember that at AI Tinkerers you are like, okay guys, you don't have SOPs. We need to write your SOPs for you, and then based on that, use our models to make them automate. Right? Is that a fair?
Yeah, it is a fair thing. So running an AI company is kind of like running a full-fledged kind of like consultancy, right? In a way. But that's okay. I mean, for us, I think we are building we're building knowledge and capabilities about how business runs as we go along. So it kind of like benefits us in a big way too. Yeah. Okay. So in terms of launch projects, we have launched this is specifically with Zeus. There are other clients as well, but this is specifically with Zeus Coffee. One is the customer service chatbot, right? That we have launched. It's live in their app. So it deals with like all the major reasons why people come to the customer service within their app. Like the main one being like, where's my drink, right? Where's my order? So that would be the main kind of like reason, and we deal with that in a way that is
their entry.
Their drink.
The drink.
Yeah. Where is it? So Zeus has a very big delivery business, right? I mean, so they do a lot of orders on delivery.
And
so
they do it through their platform, not through Grab or through what?
It's through the app. It's through their app. Yeah, through their app. So by nature, their customer service mostly happens through the app and through chat. So in the past, they had like 15 full-time kind of like customer service staff in-house, and they had to outsource a huge chunk to another like 10 or 20 heads from a BPO, right? A business process optimization firm. So basically, it's a outsourced customer service team, right? So this was costing them a lot, right? It's costing them a lot. So that made kind of like chatbots one of the priorities for them. So and for that, it needed to, one, be conversational. That means you can talk to it like a human, not through like selections or stuff like that. Secondly, it needs to be connected to its live systems. So like their POS, their even their promotions database, their outlet database, their drinks database, so it needs to be connected to all this, and all these are connected to their operations teams, right? So basically the operations team will update a new drink, and then it will get sucked into the bot immediately. So that's live now. So and it's actually deflecting around 70% of the chats. Deflecting as in like it's handling, right? Without needing to that's right. Without close a ticket immediately. 70% of the chats is being handled. So now we're actually expanding it slowly to the other countries that Zeus Coffee is in: Singapore, Philippines, and soon to be like Thailand and I forgot the other country. In Indonesia, I think. Indonesia. Yeah.
So you had the chat experience. Now that's deployed and will be deployed. And I know Zeus Coffee is having a cool logo, Zeus. It's not from Greece as a company, is it?
No, it's Malaysian, fully Malaysian.
It's fully Malaysian?
Yeah, fully Malaysian.
I've heard it was Chinese, no?
The founder is Chinese
Chinese
not Chinese nationality. He's Malaysian, but it's a Chinese Malaysian. Yeah.
And when were they founded? When did Zeus Coffee start?
2019, I think. Yeah, so it's very young as a company.
Oh wow!
Yeah, very young.
Grew.
Yeah.
Like you can see the shops all over the place. I mean, for you, this must be an incredible first use case, not only as a sandbox, but as to picture you guys, forward.
We make use of it every single day. I mean, like when we go talk to clients, we did it for Zeus, so then it creates some level of trust, I think.
Yeah, I think even within them, you must have created some trust. Like if
Yeah.
you're able to deflect 70%,
Mhm.
80% of the tickets, that's quite cool.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm sure that can scale even more.
Yes, for sure.
At AI Thinkers, you were actually mentioning a couple of other things which you tackled in the challenges. So now you're doing their document processing,
Right.
and you're doing the forecasting.
Yep.
I think there were some numbers that you were saying like you were helping them the finance side, like to save costs as well.
So finance is the document processing is mainly used in finance. Basically, specifically their AP, their accounts payable and their accounts receivable processes. So accounts payable for a company like Zeus is basically a bunch of invoices, you know, tagging it by the category that expense is incurred on. Like for example, which outlet did it incur on, what is the nature of the expense, you know. Then after that, doing validation, basically validating based on their PO and their goods received note. So once there's a match, then push it through an approval process, right, and then generate a report to be pushed into their ERP, right. So this used to be the most time-consuming process. In
how much will it cost, like time-wise?
Time-wise, if you're talking about pure man days, regardless of seniority, you're talking about 80% of manual effort is being put here.
Into that
Right?
stage.
Yeah, into that stage. In the preparation of all this stuff, the manual data entry,
And in
the
terms
manual
of
validation.
hours, just like to give an idea of.
Okay, I didn't do this calculation, but like to give you an idea, they have 40 people in their accounts, in their finance team, and 80% of the time is
Doing
this crap. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and that happens daily.
And yeah, so 40 people in their overall finance team. So this includes AP and AR, account and accounts receivable. Yeah.
payables.
Yeah, and of course there's other stuff as well, like general ledger and stuff like that. But those are relatively smaller teams, right? Relatively small teams. So, and on the receivable side, basically all they're doing is taking a bunch of payment reports from the from their credit card provider, from Grab, from Foodpanda, from there's even like small little annoying ones like, you know, One Utama card, you know, like basically they are a currency, right? You know, so they need to like take all this and in essence validate it.
Flirt it as well,
Yeah. So all these reports validate it against the bank statement,
Yeah.
and the cash,
Okay.
and their sales report, right? Their internal sales report. So then okay, this used to be a super tedious process. So what they needed to do was like download all, standardize it manually, because this didn't exist back then. You know, standardize all the things manually, and then put it into one major gigantic file that takes like
Loads of time.
5 minutes to open. Yeah, Excel file that is like 5 minutes to open, which is freaking retarded. And I think the number of times that they had to go, oh shit, I forgot to save. You know, that's so funny. Yeah. So all this, they were going through all this, right? You know, so that made them keep missing their account closing kind of like deadlines. Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, so then when this came into play, the solution came. Even the solution was like, it was so hard to build. It wasn't so hard to build technologically, but basically going to an accounts payable staff to get the process out and the exact way that they deal or they process certain issues is super difficult. Yeah.
What was difficult about it?
Getting clarity, right? You know, getting clarity of how they're actually doing things.
Why was it difficult?
Yeah, it's because they don't have proper SOPs, right? I mean, the SOPs were not tightly in place, or it's too high level to the point that, you know, the little
nuances.
nuances are not captured in that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had to go deep, and then really deep into it. Yeah.
Piss them off a little.
Yeah. Piss them off every day. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the amount of savings it does right now?
Yeah, it's expected 80%. So the thing is that they're not firing people because they're growing so fast, right? You know, they're growing so fast. So they just reallocate kind of like resources to like, hey, you handle Philippines, you handle whatever, help out there. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Very good.
so yeah, that's being done that way. Yeah.
Actually, that was, I think, the goal of originally of AI, to allow people to upskill.
That's right.
So it's great to see that happening. This comes to me as I remember how you were ending even AI Thinkers in KL, which was what it means to adopt AI, and if you can tell us about that lesson.
Oh, I forgot what I said.
No problem. I'll remind you. I'll remind you. You're saying that AI adoption is 90% culture.
Right.
10%
Yeah,
technology.
that's right.
Or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. I think no, I mean, I truly believe it, right? So because a lot about AI is basically figuring out what work is inefficient or tedious or on one side, basically on one side tedious work that humans naturally hate to do anyway, right? I mean, they naturally like if I ask you to do data entry, I don't think I can find a single person in this world. Okay, maybe I can find one out of like 6 billion that will tell me that they love data entry, right? And I don't think that that's a possibility. So removing the work that people kind of like hate to do anyway, and also on the other side, help us do things better to augment our natural deficiencies, right? Like for example, like if you were to hire someone to monitor like security for 24 hours, it's just not possible to maintain the level of quality. Or if you ask a person to consider like do a projection based on 3,000 variables, it's something that is not possible for a human to do manually, right? So that's where AI can come in and help, right? So but adopting them will require a level of kind of like humility, in the human race to say that, okay, these are things that we don't want to do anyway and we can never ever do, and figure out what's the best way forward, for us to like actually, improve and have a work towards a better quality of life.
Yeah. Actually, this I want to dive deeper into that part with, I think that the documents processing and financing, right? I don't know how they will change the future of financiers. I have ideas, but I might be wrong. So those people who have moved upscale is because, like a similar example of data, that 80% they don't need to do it anymore, right? It's
That's right.
handled. It's made into SOP. It's automated by workflow you guys have built.
That's right.
Done.
Yeah.
So then they do the high level. What do? They check if it's okay.
They check and they analyze, right? I mean, they analyze and they because what exactly is a payables team, right? So a payables team is supposed to know where, like, if let's say this payment is more than the previous, why is it so, right? Like a similar payment, right? I mean, like, let's say this bottle of water, back then it cost $1, now it costs $1.50. Like, why, right? So I think and should the payment go out, right? Should the payment go out? Do I need to question someone, to get to the root of it? I think that's essentially the goal of the payable side, right? So by removing all the manual work, the governance on this side can be a lot better. In a way, yeah.
So I think the end question that remains with all of these processes done and how you ended AI Thinkers, before I want to move in what's next. Did they adopt it? Did they adopt it peacefully? Did everyone in the team were like, oh, let's do it? Was there resistance at the beginning, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there was resistance all along the way, right? Because getting a whole team to believe that it can be done is not easy, one. And number two, I think there's some kind of, like, for a lot of people, there's latent fear as well, because I think inherently humans hate change, right? Like inherently humans hate that, right? So I think but it's something that we come to expect and come to like empathize and learn. We just learn how to deal with it, right? We just not learn how to not take it personally and just soldier ahead. Yeah.
I believe at the event you were mentioning an important point I want to bring up, which is the top. Because I know Zeus, right? Zeus, if you check the website, they are the most technical coffee producer, right? That's what they want to be. That's their mission, right?
Yeah.
That's whom they are today in many aspects,
Right.
and you guys are proof of
Yeah.
that initiative.
Yeah.
So, in that sense, you were mentioning that the management sees it that way. However, the people underneath, they're the ones where the adoption is really hard. Managers are the ones who want it and they say, yeah, we'll do it. But it comes down the line where they adopt it. So, whose work is it, in your opinion, to actually make sure it succeeds, and how? Because like you looked at the humbleness, right?
Yeah. So yeah, let me iterate that again. So basically, it's at the top. I think the top is always most susceptible and wants change and improvements, right? So with AI coming in, the buy-in is not hard, right? To get buy-in from the top to want to change. Where most of the friction comes in through the middle layer, the middle management layer, and the operational layer of any organization. Middle management layer wants somewhat confirmation that your project will be successful, right? And on the bottom layer, they don't want any change, right? They just want things to be status quo every single day, do things, the same things over and over again, right? So that the resistance from the bottom, it's the highest. But for us to be able to build solutions and push innovation, they are one of the most important people to serve, right? Because it is their workflows that we are trying to automate, and we need to understand it fully. So their cooperation is kind of like the most important, and also managing the transition for an organization. They play a very important role too. Okay, so for the middle management, so the question was like, whose responsibility is it, right? I think it's both sides, right? And I think that how organizations can push through innovation mindset from top to bottom, I think this is a very important piece, and educating kind of like the middle and bottom layer on the scenarios that might happen if this isn't undertaken. I mean, innovation isn't undertaken, so I think and putting some fear in God kind of like moments in them, like yeah, and actually there's a lot of benefits for them to take it up as well, because they will learn how, get first-hand experience learning, how to like drive this innovation within a company. And of course, the team that kind of like implements this innovation has a big role to play too. Being like, not all management is equipped with like the points or the know-how on how to like push these messages down. So the team that is implementing this innovation should play that role too, to help the management or help the middle management kind of like push it down, and be very upfront, right? And I think a lot of service providers are not upfront with, hey, this project has a possibility of failure, right? Here are the risks. Do you want to take this on? So we're lucky that we were put in this position, that we're able to do that, and we're not kind of like chasing cash all the time. So that's how we have kind of like built our processes to be, like to say that, hey, yeah, we can do this. This is where potentially it could be an issue. Are you okay with that risk, right? So to make it very upfront. Yeah.
Well, actually, that shows that from that perspective, they're open to failure.
Yeah.
And that should be the best
That's right.
case for everyone, open to fail fast and
To
easy.
good failure, right? I mean, to smart failure. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, motivating the ones at the bottom from the top, and from you as a provider, I think is great. We've touched before how it was tougher at the beginning, and I think the most important part is to let them know what would happen. Like you said, like now they're in a position where you go Philippines or you go there, so they are upskilled through the business, and that's assured. And they can be like, oh, I can't wait to get rid of my process to move on to something more exciting. As long as you can even make that happen.
Right.
But there are companies like Facebook, lays off people, of course, and other companies. So I think there's one part of the education that you provide as a service, the company itself provides, and then there's the social circle wherein people see, oh, there's still layoffs, or there's that aspect. You have to combat a lot. So it's really then, I think I agree with your point, like you really then have to be, as a service provider and the company itself together to combat against the social fear. If you hear a friend who was laid off because of that, like his experience, maybe he was promised that will not be the case, but he still happened, right? At that company.
I think layoffs will be an inevitable fact for when as AI comes into play, right? But I believe that for the human race, we will all always adapt, right? I think there are certain jobs, like for example, back then, there are these people that like connect telephone lines, right? Like a call comes in. You're probably too young to know this, but when a call comes in, what they do is like take it out and like connect the line. Like they are called switchboard operators, right? So those guys have gone extinct, right? I mean, they are not available today now. But then what happens? Like new jobs arise. New jobs arise. So every platform shift to me is just an event that's happening, and there are repercussions. But yeah. But I believe that the human race always adapts.
Next is, can you tell us where you're going to go next? What's happening here?
Right. Okay.
Zeus Coffee products, where you're going to look at with mindhive, maybe some clients, and are you looking to branch into the next chapter? Had a couple sandboxes. What's going to happen?
Okay. So I think, like from my experience with, for the past 1.5 years, 2 years, we've worked with a lot of like medium to enterprise level clients, right? So people like Zeus Coffee, bigger universities like Unitar and like IMU, and even like a private equity firm. And we've also worked with SMEs, right? And this was actually a big surprise to me that an SME will fork out like 50K, 100K ringgit to custom build a AI solution for them, which is like in the past this is not possible, right? This was not possible in normal software, right? So basically this caused me to kind of like think, how do I move forward, and currently what the direction is that because in the next, I think 2 to 3 years or 4 years, I think the medium to larger companies, the enterprises, would actually invest more and more into AI experiments, like AI software that's custom built for them. I think the budgets are just going up each year. But I think actually the bigger opportunity is in the SMEs, right? It's the small and medium businesses. Because now with AI, we've kind of like unlocked a new paradigm in terms of where the budget comes from, right? Where the budget to build this software comes from. In the past, it used to be locked into software budgets, right? Because even if you use an accounting software versus not, the amount of people saving, the amount of people saving is not that big. But as we go into it, we are seeing more and more kind of like smaller companies being able to run by using all this AI automation. So in essence, it's already starting to take from the HR budget, right? From the HR budget for companies. So then and with SMEs being the biggest kind of like hirers in the world, we believe that that's where the biggest opportunity lies. And it's not easy for a company to go in from scratch to kind of like build solutions for that market. It's bigger risk. But from what we built here, actually the risk for us is actually smaller to be able to quickly build kind of like MVPs and like push it in. The only challenge is then to identify the best kind of like the best markets or the best use cases to go after, you know. So that's kind of like what we intend on doing. So in essence, using the projects that we get from the medium to high, medium to enterprise companies, to be able to, and this serves as an R&D component for us, to be able to productize kind of like a lot for different kind of use cases for the SMEs. So that's kind of like currently what the direction kind of is.
And a lot of team to help you with that.
Yeah, a lot of young people, and our team is actually a mixture of software engineers,
Okay.
grassroots ones, and some actually most of them when we first hired, they are not from actually software engineering.
They're not from?
They are not from software engineering.
From software. Okay.
A lot of them are like chemical engineer. We even have a pharmacist.
Yeah,
So
you
it's like a
mentioned.
mixture,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it's quite an interesting journey.
Rejects.
Yeah. No, the outcast.
Rejects building the cool stuff.
Yeah. And how do you think these SMEs will look at it? Because I'm sure there's some of them that have no idea. There are some who have idea. The people have talked about it, but we're talking now about SMEs across Malaysia.
Yeah.
Maybe Singapore nearby. How are they looking at things? There's different.
So they don't care, right, whether it's AI or not. But there are certain things that AI currently it will be able to solve for them, right? And a couple of big headaches that SMEs are facing. One of them being the ability to hire people for those kind of roles, right? For roles like, I don't know, manual data entry, clerk roles, so I've talked to a couple of lawyers that told me that their biggest challenge is not in closing clients, it's actually in hiring legal clerks, for example, and people just don't want to do that work, right? They're not applying for those jobs. Legal clerks, like they are. So they just do the paperwork, the data entry, all this kind of stuff. So no one actually wants to do those jobs, because as more and more of a country is actually educated, the less the people, less supply of people that wants to do all this all this repetitive road work, right?
Malaysia is just growing.
Yeah, Malaysia is growing in that direction. So and like we have another client that is basically they are a customs broker. So what they do is they take your shipping documents, they fill up a whole long customs clearance form. So basically to
Duties.
ensure, yeah, that's right, yeah, to ensure that a container, like your shipment, can enter the country, right? So that's what they do, and their biggest challenge is actually in finding people to do that work, right? To do that data entry, making sure that the information extracted from the document is correct and pushed into the customs database form submission thingy correctly, right? So to find people that are capable to do this and they can trust to do this is actually one of their biggest headaches in scaling the business, So and we're seeing this pattern kind of like repeating itself, across many different industries. Yeah.
That's very interesting. Okay. I think this is a great thing to point out to all developing countries, because I'm sure some developed countries might already have systems, or their SMEs are starting out and they can't afford those systems,
Right.
To pay or to look into, or they just want to do things differently, and they're just starting out. So maybe their budget will be like, if we don't have to hire people, maybe we can have something done. But so you were mentioning those for 50K. So you see them forking out money as well.
That's right.
When you go and you pitch to them, what's the usual resistance you get, if there's any?
Actually, it's just trust that it will work, right? So I think AI is unique in a way that it can actually create wow situations very easily.
Okay.
So what we do is we just quickly build a POC, like a POC for free. Because we can do it. We've built kind of like a repeatable kind of like building platform for each of the things that we each of the capability sets that we have built. So we just put together a quick POC and give me your documents, like it extracts, then like, whoa, okay, this can work, okay, let's do it. So that's kind of like the usual
You build a trust.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I think that's interesting. And do you have a target for how many SMEs do you want to help over a period?
Not how many SMEs, but we have a target of launching like 3 products this year that are targeted towards the SME. Yeah.
So like a product that can be taken to this SME and that SME
That's
and
right.
that SME.
That's right.
It requires some modification still, or do you think you'll not require?
Yeah. So there are certain processes that you need to modify, but the modifications are known. So like one of the projects that we're working on is actually for order management, the order management process. So for specifically for distribution companies, wholesalers, and manufacturing companies, right? So where the challenge is orders coming in from different channels, and it's not centralized, and it's different formats as well, because it's not only POs. Because if they deal with SMEs, sometimes it's like WhatsApp, right? And they're just like, hey, I want to order this, like then someone needs to manually put it into the order, into the ERP or whatever. With Lazada and order, it's less of an issue because it's kind of automated. But there are a lot that happens on WhatsApp, for example, and emails and stuff like that, and it's very informal. So and getting people to fill up a form, getting customers to fill up an order form is usually super hard. It's not super hard, but they're giving up some stuff, right? They're giving up there will be a conversion rate that's lower than if you are serving the client.
With less friction.
Yeah, it's less friction. So the differences from one company to another, it's kind of like settings based, where like when the customer pays is a setting, that you can actually change. So that's one example of a product that we are currently working on, and we've identified a few of these that we can actually go into.
For wholesalers and manufacturers.
Yeah, and distributors.
Distributors. I think that's actually a very good use case. I actually know someone in the company who had some challenges regarding that. So I remember I actually just built a quick thing, quick extension just within the WhatsApp to be able to kind of tag to-dos for each message. Like to remind that, okay, maybe I need to fill up the form for them, so it's less friction, but then I need to remind myself by when to do it.
And that's a cute, that's a useful kind of like tool.
So I can see it going in those ways, and I think Malaysia, like, is that a big industry right now in KL, like distribution, like of products?
I think in Southeast Asia is the biggest group of company types. I think one of the biggest at least. So because I think in Southeast Asia we import a lot of stuff and resell, and basically whenever you resell stuff, usually there'll be 2 types of clients. One is direct customers and one more is resellers, right? So this is a very common kind of business type, in Southeast Asia.
Yeah. So as a matter of fact, at the end of each one of these types of interviews that I'm going to do with people who build cool stuff in Malaysia and Southeast Asia, I want to ask you what challenge you see right now in the market, and what would you like to inspire others to work on? Like, what's something, what's even a question that you would like to pose to the next person to think of about helping the industry move forward?
Right. So I think one of the biggest challenges is definitely talent. I think in Malaysia specifically, it's definitely talent.
Yeah, I see everyone is super young.
So,
Hi. Sorry, you'll be caught on camera.
We have our own way to solve it, right? I mean, we basically we hire them young. we hire them young before they get polluted by the rest of the industry. Yeah. So we hire the engineers young, even and we actually hire a lot for humility, right? Being okay with being wrong, I guess. Being making an informed kind of decision and being wrong about it, right? I think and being able to accept that you're wrong. I think this is something that is not common, right? It's just not common. Yeah. So that's kind of how we're building it up, and these tend to be the people that learns the fastest too. That's what I kind of realized. Yeah. So
if that's the challenge, what would you like to say to the others to kind of push it forwards to solve it?
Who's the others?
So I'll talk with more experts like yourselves, people who actually build AI across Malaysia, people who build tools, who build solutions.
Right.
And I think people as a community can then actually gather and say, okay, everyone's saying that's an issue and we want to solve it. So you're saying, you kind of said the challenge and you kind of said your solution.
Yeah.
So it's like the question is, what do you like for them to think of deeply and how they can solve it? Because I think the way you do it is great as a mindset, but what can be maybe made more systemically?
Right. Okay. I think that.
How would you pose a question to them? What would you like them to do? I think. Would you like them to repeat your case?
No, I would like them to actually, on top of what we're doing, definitely. I think that. I think we should work together more. To basically go down to the grassroots to kind of influence people to be better, let them experiment and play around with the technologies, and I think that this will create kind of more supply for all of us, right? More supply for all of us, and I think that the AI market is so big, right? So stop being little bitches and hiding, in a corner. Let's just come out and talk. And I see that happening a lot already, right? I see that happening a lot with AI tinkerers and stuff like that. People actually coming out to start working together. I think that's a good thing. Yeah.
Good thing. Yeah, I think so. Then I think there's two big lessons from this meeting that I took. One, adoption, culture, more than technology, and where there's technology, things can be dealt with as long as the company teaches that culture.
Yeah, that's right.
And the second one is when you build things, you can do it with a scrappy team, as long as there is a team who believes in being wrong, correcting quickly, and adapting fast. So I think the next skill is not so much, from what I get from you, is not so much having already the hard skill, but the ability to adapt really quickly.
That's right.
Learn really quickly. And of course, have a modicum of experience in some parts, but be ready to take that 10x if needs be.
That's right.
Don't be afraid to join in, try new things, try new tools, and have that as an ecosystem so that more SMEs are known. And it's also cool what you guys are going to do in the future. I'll have to stay up to date and see how it pans out for Malaysia and Southeast Asia.
Sure.
Because I think it's going to be a big opportunity. Antler was just releasing a paper across these use cases.
Right.
I believe that also.
Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah, I should search for it. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. All right.